The sun is still rising over the workshops of Peshawar when the metallic sound of tools already fills the streets. Before us is a true veteran of the roads, a classic Mercedes-Benz truck that carries decades of hard work within its structure. In many countries, a vehicle like this would already be retired in a museum or dismantled in a junkyard. But in Pakistan, the story is different. Here, trucks 30, 40, and even 50 years old continue to transport cargo, drive business, and guarantee the livelihood of thousands of families. They are not just vehicles. They are a fundamental part of the country's economy. But how do these machines manage to remain in operation for so long? The answer is directly linked to the economic reality of the region. With the constant devaluation of the local currency, high financing costs, and heavy taxes on new vehicles, acquiring a modern truck is out of reach for most small transporters. For many business owners, replacing the fleet is simply not an option. And it is precisely in this scenario that an impressive culture of reuse and reconstruction emerges. Every year, Pakistan receives used trucks, cars, and machinery from Europe, Japan, and the United States. Many arrive disassembled in a system known as CKD, an acronym for completely knocked down. By entering the country as sets of parts, import costs are reduced, and then the real work begins. In the hands of highly experienced mechanics, worn-out components gain a second life. Parts are adapted, systems are rebuilt, and vehicles considered obsolete return to operation under extremely harsh conditions. These workshops do much more than simple repairs. They keep the economy moving. And today we will follow one of the most important stages of this process: the complete reconstruction of a Mercedes-Benz truck's gearbox from the 1980s. Do you know the secret of auto repair shops in Pakistan? Refurbishing Mercedes truck gearboxes. If you enjoy this type of content, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos, and leave a like. The gearbox is one of the most important parts of the entire mechanical assembly. It's what transforms the power generated by the engine into useful movement, allowing tons of cargo to traverse roads, mountains, and challenging terrain every day. Without a perfectly functioning transmission, not even the most powerful diesel engine would be able to deliver the torque needed to tackle the long climbs of northern Pakistan or the vast plains of Punjab. Therefore, each component needs to work in perfect harmony. The disassembly process begins now. There are no sophisticated hydraulic lifts, computerized equipment, or state-of-the-art tools. What we see is something far more impressive. A team of mechanics who know every detail of this transmission like the back of their hand. Precise movements are repeated like a carefully rehearsed choreography honed over decades of experience. Screw after screw, cover after cover, the gearbox structure begins to reveal its secrets. Each removed part tells a story of thousands of kilometers traveled, loads transported, and years of uninterrupted work. And it is only when the assembly is completely disassembled that the true signs of wear begin to appear. Despite the simplicity of the office, nothing happens by chance. Every tool, screw, and component removed follows a rigorous organization built on years of experience. Parts are carefully separated and stored as the disassembly progresses, because here there is no luxury of an order or a stock full of new components at hand. Losing, wearing, or damaging any part can mean days of delay. In many cases, when a component cannot be reused, the only alternative is to manufacture it again in specialized workshops, a process that requires additional time, skill, and resources. That's why every detail receives maximum attention. The mechanics know that the success of maintenance depends as much on organization as on the repair technique itself. Everything is visually catalogued, preserved, and prepared to return exactly to its place during final assembly. It is a demonstration of discipline and practical knowledge that allows these workshops to recover complex mechanical systems using minimal resources, but with impressive efficiency. Local parts manufacturing is a common and indispensable practice for keeping vehicles and machinery running. In many regions, access to new components is limited or simply too expensive. Therefore, mechanics resort to handcrafted machining and adapting parts to extend the lifespan of equipment. Using lathes and traditional tools, worn-out components are given a new lease on life. What would be discarded elsewhere is put back into service here thanks to the skill and experience accumulated over decades. Using simple lathes, basic tools, and a great deal of experience, these professionals are able to reproduce parts with surprising precision. Often, they work using only the original part as a reference, making manual adjustments until they achieve the ideal fit. It is a job that requires skill, patience, and knowledge acquired over many years of practice. This type of work requires knowledge of materials, an understanding of tolerances, and a great deal of practical skill. It's not just about improvisation, but about applied experience in daily work, where each manufactured part represents a solution to keep the machine running safely. It is precisely this ability to create, adapt, and rebuild that keeps workshops in operation and machines running for decades. Even in the face of numerous limitations, these professionals show that experience, practical knowledge, and creativity can often compensate for the lack of technology. It is common to see sheet metal being cut, heated, and shaped manually, shafts being rebuilt on simple lathes, and gears adjusted with basic tools. Each component undergoes successive tests and adjustments until it achieves the proper fit and function. This scenario creates extremely versatile professionals, capable of solving complex problems with limited resources. It's a system based on constant adaptation, where each challenge demands a different solution. In the end, it's not just about manufacturing a part, but about keeping essential machines running, guaranteeing work, transportation, and livelihoods for thousands of people. The diagnosis needs to be careful. Mechanics look for signs of metal fatigue, broken teeth, and excessive wear on the synchronizer rings, components responsible for equalizing gear speed and ensuring smooth and precise gear changes. It is at this stage that components that can be reused and those that will need repair or replacement are identified. In addition, shaft clearances, bearing condition, and possible signs of overheating are checked, which may indicate previous failures or lubrication problems. Each detail analyzed helps determine which components can be reused and which will need to be repaired or remanufactured. Based on this diagnosis, the mechanic begins to carefully separate each component, identifying what can still be reused and what will require repair. Parts with slight wear can be adjusted and recovered, while the most compromised ones are sent for manufacturing or handcrafted reconstruction. This step is fundamental to ensure that, after assembly, the gearbox will operate efficiently, reliably, and quietly, even after years of heavy service. But before any component returns to its place, there is an indispensable step: cleaning. Gears, shafts, and bearings are carefully washed with diesel oil or kerosene to remove metallic residue, accumulated dirt, and carbonized oil. A single particle left inside the assembly can compromise the entire job and cause new damage in a short time. Observing the robustness of each component, it's easy to understand why these German trucks earn such a reputation in Pakistan. The engineering of the time prioritized strength and durability, resulting in machines designed to withstand years of heavy work. It is precisely this robust construction that allows many of these vehicles to continue operating even after decades of intensive use. In Pakistan, this level of resistance became essential, helping trucks cope with overloads, difficult roads, and exhausting journeys without failing to fulfill their purpose. If you've made it this far, it's because you truly appreciate this type of content. So take the opportunity to like, subscribe to the channel, and share your opinion in the comments. The support of each subscriber is fundamental for DSS Trash to Treasure to continue showcasing complete processes, real stories, and impressive workshops directly from Pakistan. Your support helps the channel grow and bring even more exclusive content to those who value true engineering in practice. On Pakistan's roads, every journey goes far beyond transporting goods. It's a true test of endurance for the trucks and the men who spend days behind the wheel, crossing mountains, traversing arid regions, and traveling enormous distances between cities. These vehicles operate in conditions that, in many parts of the world, would be considered extreme. The routes frequently traverse narrow, winding roads, often without any side protection, skirting steep slopes and dangerous precipices. In stretches like these, a small mistake can have serious consequences. It is precisely in this challenging scenario that trucks with decades of use continue to face heavy loads, endless climbs, and exhausting journeys, demonstrating why mechanical robustness is still so valued in Pakistan. In the mountainous regions of northern Pakistan, trucks face some of the country's most challenging routes. Steep climbs, dangerous descents, sharp curves, and narrow roads demand the utmost from the mechanical systems. The weight of the load puts the engine, brakes, suspension, and transmission under constant strain, pushing each component to its limit. In the more arid areas, the challenges change, but remain equally severe. Fine dust permeates all systems, while intense heat accelerates the wear and tear of parts and components. In many regions, the lack of infrastructure forces trucks to travel long distances on dirt roads, where potholes, rocks, and uneven surfaces are part of the daily routine. Every kilometer traveled represents a test of endurance. This is precisely why mechanical durability is so highly valued. When a truck needs to operate in these conditions for years, every repair, every maintenance, and every recovered part can make the difference between continuing to work or being out of service. Even on paved highways, the challenges are far from over. Heavy traffic brings together loaded trucks, buses, motorcycles, and vehicles of all sizes sharing the same space. Amidst risky overtaking, sudden changes of direction, and a constant flow of vehicles, the driver's attention needs to be unwavering. Under these conditions, experience and quick reflexes make all the difference. That's why maintenance isn't just a matter of performance, but an absolute necessity. A single worn component can turn an ordinary trip into a major problem. Every load transported, every kilometer traveled, and every delivery made depends directly on the reliability of the truck. For thousands of Pakistani transporters, keeping these vehicles in perfect working order isn't just a mechanical issue. It's what guarantees work, income, and the continuity of an entire transport chain that drives the country's economy. The rebuilding phase is the crucial moment. Mechanics precisely reinstall bearings, shafts, and gears, carefully checking alignments and clearances. A small error in adjusting a shim or positioning a gear can compromise the entire transmission's operation. Therefore, each step is carried out with attention, ensuring that all parts work in perfect harmony when the gearbox is back in operation. That's why every movement is now slower and more calculated. There's no room for rushing. Each component returns to its place following a precise sequence, guided by the experience accumulated over the years. At this point, attention to detail makes all the difference between a reliable transmission and another mechanical failure. The bearings are installed with extreme care, ensuring the perfect balance between clearance and tightness. An incorrect fit can cause overheating, accelerate wear of the parts, and compromise the entire transmission in a short time. Therefore, each assembly is carefully checked before the unit advances to the next stage. Next, the assembly of the shafts begins. Each shaft supports gears that need to work in perfect harmony. Alignment is fundamental. Even a small deviation can cause noise, vibrations, and reduce transmission efficiency. Therefore, each component is carefully positioned, ensuring that the engine's power is transmitted as smoothly and reliably as possible. The gears, which previously underwent a detailed inspection, are now returned to their place. The meshing of the teeth must be precise, without excessive play or friction. This balance ensures the smooth operation of the transmission. With each new part installed, the mechanic rotates the assembly manually. It may seem like a simple test, but it is a fundamental step. By touch and by the resistance of the movement, he can identify jams, misalignments, or any irregularities before final assembly. With the main assembly in place, it's time for the synchronizers. Although they go unnoticed by most people, these components are essential for the transmission's operation. They allow for smooth and precise gear changes, equalizing the speed of the gears before engagement. Without synchronizers, each gear change would require much more effort and generate accelerated wear on the internal components. If the synchronizers are worn or poorly adjusted, problems appear immediately. Difficult gear engagement, noises during gear changes, and premature wear are some of the most common signs. Therefore, assembly is carried out with extreme care. Springs, rings, and contact surfaces are carefully inspected before final installation. Nothing is left to chance. In a transmission like this, it is precisely the small details that guarantee smooth and reliable operation for many years. As assembly progresses, the transmission begins to take shape again. What was once a collection of parts scattered around the workshop is gradually transforming into a functional unit, but the work is far from finished. With the main components already installed, it's time to check clearances and make final adjustments. This step is essential to ensure that all parts work in perfect harmony, preventing premature wear and ensuring smooth and reliable operation. This is one of the most delicate stages of the entire rebuild. Excessive play can cause noise, vibrations, and premature wear. Adjustments that are too tight increase friction, generate heat, and can even cause seizing. Finding the ideal point requires experience, patience, and attention to detail. To do this, the mechanic uses shims, washers, and small adjustments, refining the assembly until the correct fit is achieved. In many cases, it is necessary to assemble and disassemble transmission parts several times before achieving the desired result. The external parts of the gearbox also play a fundamental role in the functioning of the assembly. Although they do not directly act on the internal gears, they are responsible for engaging the gears, transmitting power, and securely attaching the system to the vehicle. Without these components working correctly, the entire efficiency and reliability of the transmission can be compromised. One of the most important external parts is the gearshift linkage, responsible for transmitting the movement of the gear lever to the inside of the gearbox. It is through this linkage that the driver selects each gear while driving. Any wear, misalignment, or play in this assembly can cause imprecise gear changes, difficulty in shifting, and even transmission malfunctions. Therefore, each component is carefully inspected, adjusted, and reinstalled, ensuring that the commands reach the gears accurately and reliably. Another fundamental component is the input shaft, responsible for receiving the engine's power through the clutch and transmitting it to the gearbox. It acts as the gateway for all the power generated by the engine. Therefore, it needs to operate perfectly aligned and with adequate sealing to avoid vibrations, leaks, and loss of efficiency. Even a small amount of wear on this part can compromise the operation of the entire transmission, making its inspection and assembly indispensable steps during rebuilding. At the rear of the transmission is the output shaft, responsible for transferring the force, already multiplied by the gears, to the differential and, consequently, to the vehicle's wheels. It connects the work done inside the gearbox to the rest of the drive system. Normally, this shaft works in conjunction with flanges and couplings that connect to the driveshaft in rear-wheel drive trucks. Because it operates under high loads and continuously, anywhere or misalignment can cause vibrations, noise, and loss of efficiency, making its inspection a fundamental step during rebuilding. The outer casings and covers also play a fundamental role in the assembly. In addition to protecting the gears, bearings, and shafts from dust, moisture, and impacts, they help dissipate the heat generated during transmission operation. Another essential function is to keep the lubricating oil contained inside the housing, ensuring proper lubrication of all components. A poorly executed seal can cause leaks, reduce internal protection, and compromise the performance of the entire system. Therefore, before final assembly, each contact surface is carefully cleaned and inspected to ensure a perfect seal. Another indispensable element is the seals and gaskets, responsible for keeping the oil inside the gearbox and preventing the entry of dust, water, and other impurities. Although they are relatively simple components, their role is fundamental to the durability and reliability of the entire transmission. A single leak can compromise lubrication and accelerate the wear of internal parts. Also deserving of attention are the supports and bushings that fix the gearbox to the chassis. They absorb vibrations, reduce impacts, and help maintain the correct alignment between the engine, transmission, and the rest of the mechanical assembly. Without these components working properly, the comfort, stability, and even the lifespan of the transmission can be seriously affected. Finally, sensors and actuators, when present, assist in monitoring and operating the transmission, especially in more modern vehicles. Although they are located outside the gearbox, these components work in perfect harmony with the entire internal assembly. The failure of a single part can compromise the performance of the entire system, showing that in mechanics every detail is important. And so we come to the end of another impressive reconstruction. A process where technique, experience, and necessity come together to give life back to a piece of equipment that many would consider lost. More than a simple repair, what we saw here was a demonstration of practical knowledge, patience, and dedication. Each adjustment, each measurement, and each decision were part of a job that goes far beyond mechanics. In workshops like this, the lack of resources is compensated by the skill of the professionals. It is experience transforming problems into solutions, keeping essential vehicles in operation and sustaining the transportation that drives the local economy. In the end, this gearbox is not just a set of gears. It symbolizes the ability to create, adapt, and rebuild, showing that, even in the face of limitations, human ingenuity remains one of the most valuable tools ever created. In a scenario where replacement isn't always an option, rebuilding becomes a necessity. And it's precisely this ability to recover, adapt, and reuse that keeps machines, vehicles, and stories moving every day. What we've seen here goes far beyond the reconstruction of a simple gearbox. It reflects a mechanical culture based on experience, creativity, and the determination to find solutions where many would only see scrap. Each recovered part, each adjustment made, and each hour of work invested represents much more than savings. They represent accumulated knowledge over generations and the ability to keep essential equipment running even in the most challenging conditions. If you've made it this far, you already understand the value of this type of work. So don't forget to subscribe to DSS Trash to Treasure, leave your comment, and share this video with anyone who also appreciates true, grassroots mechanics. Because here, nothing is simply discarded. With skill, dedication, and experience, everything can get a new chance to come back to life. See you in the next video.